The massive screens in Times Square went dark all at once. In London, Paris, and Tokyo, television broadcasts cut to static. Radio stations worldwide fell silent. For 30 seconds, Earth held its breath. Then, every screen lit up with the same image, a towering figure with metallic blue skin and eyes that glowed like distant stars. People of Earth, the alien spoke in perfect English, its voice simultaneously broadcasting in every human language across the globe. We are the Dominion. Your primitive civilization has been deemed unworthy of independence. Surrender now, and we will guide your species to enlightenment. Resist, and we will force your compliance. In the International Space Defense Force headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain James Walker watched the broadcast with clenched fists. Around him, military officers and world leaders joined through secure video feeds, their faces showing mixed expressions of fear and anger. "They're in every system," a technician reported, fingers flying across his keyboard. "Television, radio, internet. They've taken control of everything digital." Walker stepped forward, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Can we broadcast a response?" "Yes, sir. They've left that capability intact." "They want an answer." The world leaders quickly voted. Earth would not surrender to threats. As the ranking officer of humanity's combined space defense forces, they chose Walker to deliver their message. He straightened his uniform and faced the camera. "This is Captain James Walker of Earth's International Space Defense Force. We reject your demand for surrender. Earth is our home, and we will defend it." The aliens' laughter echoed through every speaker on the planet. Brave words from a primitive species. "Your most advanced computers are toys compared to our quantum systems. Your strongest weapons are children's playthings. But we admire your spirit. You have 24 hours to reconsider before we demonstrate our power." The screens went dark again, then returned to their normal broadcasts. But the threat lingered in the air like smoke. Walker immediately ordered all Earth's defensive satellites and space stations to high alert. They had barely started establishing humanity's presence in space, with only a few small bases on the Moon and Mars. Their most advanced ships could barely reach the outer planets. How could they fight an enemy that could hack every computer on Earth simultaneously? 18 hours later, they got their answer. The Dominion ships appeared above every major city on Earth, massive vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Each one was larger than an aircraft carrier, bristling with weapons Earth's scientists couldn't even understand. "Look at their formation," Walker said, studying the tactical displays. "They're positioning themselves in a blockade pattern. They're not here to invade. They're going to cage us." He was right. The Dominion ships settled into precise orbits, creating an impenetrable network around Earth. Any attempt to launch a spacecraft would be instantly detected and destroyed. They weren't just trapping humanity on Earth. They were cutting off their future in space. The alien commander appeared on screens again. "Since you refuse our generous offer, we will demonstrate the gap between our civilizations. Observe." One of their ships fired a single shot at an empty patch of ocean in the South Pacific. The beam didn't seem impressive, just a thin line of purple light. But when it hit the water, the ocean itself seemed to pause. In a circle 5 miles wide, the waves simply stopped moving. Then, slowly, the water began to rise. It formed a perfect column reaching toward the sky, defying gravity itself. "We control the fundamental forces of your universe," the alien said. "Gravity, electromagnetic energy, even time itself bend to our will. Your most advanced physics theories barely scratch the surface of our basic technology. This is why you need our guidance. This is why resistance is futile." To drive their point home, the ship released its hold on the water. The massive column crashed back into the ocean, creating waves that would have devastated nearby islands if the Dominion hadn't contained them with their gravity technology. The message was clear. They could destroy Earth's cities anytime they wanted, but they were choosing not to. In the ISDF headquarters, Walker and his team worked frantically to find any weakness in the alien blockade. Their best hackers couldn't even detect the aliens' computer systems, let alone breach them. Their most powerful rockets would be torn apart by the gravity weapons before reaching orbit. Even their nuclear weapons were useless. The Dominion ships could clearly control the fundamental forces that made such weapons work. "Sir," one of his analysts called out, "I think I found something interesting. Look at their energy readings." Walker studied the data. The Dominion ships were putting out enormous power signatures, far beyond anything Earth's technology could match. But there was something odd about the pattern. It's all digital, he realized. Every system they're using, from their gravity weapons to their communications, it's all running through quantum computers. They've made everything so advanced that they've completely abandoned simple mechanical systems. It wasn't much, but it was something. Walker called an emergency meeting with Earth's top scientists and engineers. They needed to find a way to fight back, and they couldn't use any of their advanced technology to do it. The Dominion controlled anything digital, anything that relied on modern electronics. "We need to think simpler," Walker told them. "More basic. What can we do with mechanical systems, with chemistry and physics that don't rely on computer control?" Most of the scientists looked defeated. Their life's work had just been proven centuries behind alien technology. But in the back of the room, an older engineer named Tom Reynolds was drawing something on a napkin. His hands were calloused from real work, not just typing on keyboards. "Captain," Tom spoke up, his voice rough but confident, "I think I might have an idea. These aliens, they're so advanced they've forgotten some basic principles. They're looking for digital signals, electronic weapons, energy signatures. But what if we went older? Much older?" Walker looked at the sketch. It was a simple mechanical device, something that could have been built 100 years ago. "But if it worked, tell me more," he said. In his small workshop, surrounded by lathes and drill presses that had belonged to his grandfather, Tom Reynolds began to work. The Dominion might control Earth's skies, but they'd forgotten something important about humans. They didn't give up. They adapted. They survived. And sometimes, the oldest solutions were the best ones. The aliens had given Earth 24 hours to surrender. Instead, humanity spent that time preparing for the longest fight of their existence. They might be trapped on their planet, cut off from the stars they dreamed of reaching, but they weren't defeated. Not yet. As the deadline approached, Walker looked out his window at the massive alien ship hovering over the mountains. Its hull rippled with impossible energies. Its quantum computers calculated 1 billion possibilities per second. But maybe, just maybe, they'd overlooked the power of simple human ingenuity. The next 24 hours would prove if humanity deserved its place among the stars. Not through advanced technology, but through the stubborn creativity that had taken them from stone tools to space shuttles in the blink of cosmic time. The war for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapon would be the simplest thing of all: their ability to solve problems with whatever tools they had at hand. Tom Reynolds' workshop hummed with the sound of old machinery. While the rest of the world watched alien ships through their windows, he worked with tools that hadn't changed much in 100 years. His lathe spun steadily, shaping brass and steel with precision that came from decades of experience. No computers, no digital readouts, just knowledge passed down through generations of craftsmen. "You're sure about this?" Captain Walker asked, watching Tom work. The workshop was a sharp contrast to the high-tech military facility above. Here, everything was analog. The walls were covered with hand-drawn blueprints and pegboards holding carefully organized tools. "Look at this," Tom said, picking up a piece of scrap metal from his workbench. He held it under the ship that was visible through his small window. The metal vibrated slightly. "Their gravity weapons create patterns, regular pulses. If we can match that frequency mechanically." He didn't finish the sentence, just turned back to his work. On his bench lay what looked like an old-fashioned pocket watch, but its insides were unlike anything Walker had seen before. Gears turned against springs, each movement precisely calculated without a single electronic part. "How many people do you need?" Walker asked. Tom thought for a moment, his hands never stopping their work. "Find me other engineers, old school types. People who know how to build things with their hands, not just program computers. And I need materials. Brass, steel, copper. Simple stuff, nothing fancy." Within days, Tom's workshop became a hub of activity. Engineers and mechanics from around the world were quietly brought in. The Dominion could monitor every digital communication, every electronic signal, but they weren't watching for paper messages carried by hand or Morse code tapped through water pipes. Linda Martinez, who had restored classic cars since she was a teenager, figured out how to use simple spring tension to launch projectiles without gunpowder. Mike O'Brien, an old clockmaker, designed timing mechanisms that could coordinate attacks without radio signals. Robert Turner, who built mechanical computers as a hobby, created analog calculating devices that helped predict the alien ship's movements. They worked with tools their great-grandparents would have recognized. Lathes, mills, drill presses, machines that shaped metal through pure mechanical force. The Dominion sensors were designed to detect energy weapons, digital signals, and nuclear reactions. They weren't looking for the quiet work of hand tools and human skill. "It's like they've forgotten their own history," Tom said one evening, explaining his ideas to the team. "Every civilization must have started with simple machines before they developed advanced technology. But they've gone so far forward, they can't imagine going backward." He demonstrated his first working prototype, a device that looked like a simple brass cylinder. Inside, carefully calibrated springs and weights created a resonance frequency that matched the Dominion's gravity weapons. When activated by a purely mechanical trigger, it could disrupt their gravity fields for a few crucial seconds. "We don't need to beat their whole technology," he explained. "We just need to create small advantages, moments of weakness we can exploit." The team worked in shifts, 24 hours a day. They had to be careful. Any unusual power usage might attract the aliens' attention. Many of the machines were converted to run on foot pedals or hand cranks. The workshop's walls were lined with lead and copper sheets, creating a crude but effective shield against alien scans. Meanwhile, the Dominion continued their shows of force. They would occasionally lift entire lakes into the air or stop time in small areas, demonstrating their power. They seemed amused by humanity's continued resistance, like adults watching children play at war. But they didn't notice the network of workshops spreading through basements and old buildings across the globe. They didn't spot the mechanical communication systems being built using principles from the 1800s. They were too focused on monitoring digital networks to notice the revival of telegraph lines and heliographs. Tom's team made breakthrough after breakthrough. They discovered that the alien ship's hulls had a natural resonance frequency that could be exploited with simple sonic devices. Their quantum computers were susceptible to interference from certain patterns of magnetic fields, fields that could be generated without electronics, using precisely arranged permanent magnets. "It's not about matching their technology," Tom told Walker during one of his progress reports. "It's about finding the basic physical principles their technology relies on. Every system, no matter how advanced, still has to obey the fundamental laws of nature." The team started small, testing their devices in carefully controlled conditions. They found that even the Dominion's most advanced sensors couldn't detect their mechanical systems unless they were actively operating. It was like they had developed a form of technological invisibility, hiding in the shadows of the aliens' expectations. Walker brought in retired military strategists who understood how to fight without modern technology. They helped develop tactics that combined the new mechanical devices with simple, proven warfare techniques. Plans were drawn up, copied by hand, and distributed through an underground network of resistance cells. 3 months after the invasion, they were ready for their first test. The target was a small alien scout ship that regularly passed over the Rocky Mountains. The plan was simple: prove that their devices worked, then disappear before the Dominion could respond. Tom insisted on being there himself. He and a small team climbed into position the old-fashioned way, using ropes and pitons. They carried their devices in backpacks. Simple mechanical tools that looked like antiques but contained the products of 3 months of intense innovation. As the alien ship passed overhead, Tom activated his resonance device. The brass cylinder began to hum, its internal weights and springs moving in perfect harmony. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship's gravity field flickered, just for a second, but enough to prove the concept. The team quickly packed up and disappeared into hidden caves, using no radio or electronic devices that could be traced. By the time the Dominion sent ships to investigate the disturbance, they found nothing but empty rocks. But the success spread hope through the resistance network. Tom's workshop became the heart of a new kind of industrial revolution, one that moved backward instead of forward, finding strength in simplicity rather than complexity. "We're not ready for a full confrontation yet," Tom told his team as they celebrated their small victory. "But we've proved something important today. The Dominion isn't invincible. Their technology has weaknesses, and we can exploit them without matching their level of advancement." The workshop continued its quiet work, but now with renewed energy. Every day, more devices were created, tested, and distributed. The resistance grew stronger, all while the Dominion continued to watch their computers and sensors for signs of electronic warfare that would never come. Humanity was learning to fight back, not by advancing, but by remembering. By reaching back to their roots and finding strength in the simple machines their ancestors had built. The Dominion had given them no choice but to innovate backward, and in doing so, they had unknowingly created their own weakness. The real war hadn't started yet, but in workshops and basements around the world, humanity was building an arsenal that the most advanced civilization in the galaxy wouldn't see coming until it was too late. News of the successful test spread through the resistance network like wildfire, passed along through whispers and handwritten notes. In workshops across the globe, engineers and craftsmen began duplicating Tom's designs, each adding their own improvements. The resistance was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a reality. In an abandoned factory in Detroit, auto workers retooled old assembly lines to work without computers. Their machines, powered by simple steam engines and human muscle, produced components for the Resistance's mechanical weapons. The steady thrum of their work was masked by the sounds of the city above. "We found something interesting," Linda Martinez told Tom during one of their secure meetings. She spread out a set of blueprints on the workshop table. "My team discovered that if we adjust the resonance frequency of your device, we can also disrupt their communication systems." The discovery was a game changer. The Dominion relied heavily on quantum entanglement for instant communication between their ships. But like all their technology, it had a physical component that could be affected by the right mechanical interference. Tom's original workshop had grown into a network of underground facilities. They used old mining tunnels, abandoned subway stations, and forgotten Cold War bunkers. Each location specialized in different aspects of their mechanical arsenal. Some focused on weapons, others on communication or defense. The Resistance's greatest advantage was their use of primitive technology. The Dominion sensors were designed to detect advanced energy signatures and digital communications. They couldn't spot the mechanical telegraph systems the humans had restored, or the heliograph networks that used mirrors to flash coded messages between mountain peaks. 6 months after the invasion, the Resistance launched their first coordinated attack. The target was a Dominion patrol ship over the Australian outback. Teams armed with spring-powered launchers and resonance devices struck from multiple directions. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes. The alien ship, its gravity fields disrupted by mechanical interference, was forced to land. Its quantum communication systems were blocked by precisely calibrated sound waves. Before the Dominion could respond, the attackers disappeared into a network of old mines, leaving behind a damaged ship and confused aliens. The Dominion's response was immediate and harsh. They increased their patrols, and began random gravity disruptions over major cities. But their shows of force only helped the resistance. Each demonstration of their gravity weapons gave Tom's engineers more data about the frequencies they needed to counter. "They're getting nervous," Captain Walker observed, watching the aliens' increasingly aggressive displays. "They're used to controlling primitive species through fear and superior technology. But they've never faced an enemy that fights back like this." The Resistance's tactics evolved. They learned to use the Dominion's strengths against them. When the aliens deployed their time-stopping weapons, the humans responded with simple mechanical timers that weren't affected by temporal disruption. When the Dominion tried to track their movements with quantum sensors, the Resistance used old-fashioned misdirection and camouflage. In his original workshop, Tom worked on his most ambitious project yet. The plans covered an entire wall, a mechanical computer designed to predict and counter the Dominion's battle strategies. It would use principles similar to the ancient Greek Antikythera mechanism, but on a much larger scale. "Their quantum computers can calculate 1 billion possibilities per second," he explained to his team. "But they're predictable. They always choose the mathematically optimal solution. Our mechanical computer won't be as fast, but it will help us predict exactly what they'll do." The device took shape slowly, built from thousands of precisely machined gears and levers. It couldn't match the raw calculating power of alien technology, but it didn't need to. It only needed to identify patterns in the Dominion's behavior, patterns their own computers couldn't see because they were too perfect, too logical. As the Resistance grew stronger, the Dominion became increasingly frustrated. Their scans couldn't detect the humans' weapons until they were activated. Their attacks on infrastructure did nothing to slow the spread of mechanical technology. They had expected humanity to either surrender or try to match their advanced technology. This regression to simpler methods confused them. In India, old steam engines were restored to power resistance workshops. In Brazil, abandoned water wheels turned generators that couldn't be detected by alien sensors. Across Europe, mechanical calculating machines clicked and whirred in basement workshops, coordinating attacks without digital signals. The Resistance's greatest victory came when they discovered how to use simple magnetic fields to interfere with the Dominion's quantum computers. The aliens had built their entire civilization on quantum technology, making it their greatest strength, but also their greatest weakness. Every quantum computer relies on maintaining precise atomic states, Tom explained during a Resistance leadership meeting. "Our magnetic disruptors might be primitive, but physics is physics. Even their advanced technology has to obey the same basic laws of nature that we do." The turning point came 8 months after the invasion. A Dominion command ship over London suffered a complete systems failure when the Resistance activated a network of magnetic disruptors hidden in the old underground tunnels. The massive vessel, unable to maintain its gravity field, was forced to make an emergency landing in the Thames. For 6 hours, the ship's quantum computers were completely offline. Its crew was stranded, unable to communicate with their fleet or operate their advanced weapons. By the time they restored their systems, the Resistance had gathered vital intelligence about their technology. More importantly, the London incident proved that the Dominion could be beaten. Their technological superiority wasn't absolute. Humanity had found a way to fight back using knowledge that predated computers, electricity, and even steam power. The Resistance's numbers swelled. More workshops were built, more weapons manufactured. The Dominion's attempts to maintain control became increasingly desperate. They couldn't understand how a primitive species with no access to advanced technology was able to challenge their dominance. They never learned the most important lesson about technology, Tom told his team as they prepared for their next major operation. "It's not about how advanced your tools are. It's about understanding the principles behind them." The Dominion forgot their roots, but we're reminding them. The war for Earth had entered a new phase. The Resistance was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. In workshops and hideouts around the world, humans continued to build their arsenal of mechanical weapons and tools. The Dominion's greatest miscalculation was thinking that technology only moved forward. They hadn't considered that sometimes the best way to overcome a superior force was to step backward, to return to basics, to remember the simple principles that all technology, no matter how advanced, had to follow. The next phase of the war was about to begin. And this time, humanity was ready. The Dominion's patience finally broke. Their mighty fleet, which had maintained a disciplined blockade for nearly 9 months, began to move into attack positions. Over every major city on Earth, their massive ships descended through the clouds, their hulls rippling with barely contained energy. In his workshop, Tom watched the approaching ships through his small window. His mechanical computer had predicted this. The aliens would eventually resort to brute force. Their quantum computers had calculated that a display of overwhelming power was the logical solution to human resistance. "They're right on schedule," he said, checking the brass and copper device that served as the Resistance's mechanical timer. Around him, his team worked with quiet efficiency, making final adjustments to their largest project yet. The workshop's walls had been stripped bare. Every gear, spring, and lever from their smaller devices had been repurposed for this last, desperate gambit. The machine that filled the room looked like something from an old science fiction novel, a mass of interconnected mechanical components that moved with precise, clockwork harmony. Captain Walker arrived as they were making final adjustments. "The Dominion's commander is demanding our complete surrender," he reported. "They're threatening to destroy every major city if we don't comply within 1 hour." Tom nodded, unsurprised. They're following the pattern. Their computers have told them that this is the most efficient way to break our will. He turned to his team. "Are we ready?" Linda Martinez tightened the last connection on their device. "As ready as we'll ever be. All resistance cells are in position. They're just waiting for the signal." The plan they had developed was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Over the past months, while the Dominion was focused on their hit-and-run attacks, the Resistance had been building something much bigger. In every major city, hidden in basements and tunnels, they had constructed massive mechanical resonators. Each device was different, built from whatever materials were available locally. In New York, they used the city's subway tunnels to amplify their resonators' effect. In Tokyo, they had integrated their device into the old earthquake-dampening systems of skyscrapers. London's resonator was built into the foundation of Big Ben itself, using the famous clock's own mechanisms as part of their machine. "What happens if this doesn't work?" Walker asked, watching the alien ships through the window. Tom's expression was grim. "Then at least we tried. But it will work. The physics is sound. We're not trying to match their technology. We're using their own power against them." The Dominion ships continued their descent. In every city, they positioned themselves for maximum psychological impact, hovering directly over the most populated areas. Their gravity weapons created visible distortions in the air, a clear threat of what was to come. The alien commander's voice boomed through every speaker and screen. "Your primitive resistance ends now. You have 50 minutes to surrender, or we will demonstrate the true power of the Dominion. Your cities will be crushed, your civilization reduced to atoms." Tom checked his mechanical timer again. "Right on schedule," he muttered. He turned to Walker. "Give the signal." Walker pulled out an old brass whistle, the kind that had once been used to command troops before radio communications. Its sound would be picked up by mechanical sensors throughout the Resistance network, triggering a cascade of events that had been planned for months. The whistle's shrill note cut through the tense air. In workshops and hideouts around the world, Resistance members began activating their devices. The mechanical resonators, each one precisely calibrated to match the Dominion's gravity weapons, hummed to life. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The alien ships maintained their threatening positions, their gravity fields continuing to distort the air around them. But then, something changed. The distortions began to shift, the patterns becoming erratic. "The resonance is building," Tom explained, watching the readings on his mechanical gauges. Each device alone wouldn't be enough. But together, synchronized by our mechanical computer network, they're creating a feedback loop in their gravity fields. The effect grew stronger. The Dominion ships began to vibrate visibly, their perfect formations wavering. Their gravity weapons, trying to compensate for the interference, only made things worse. Each adjustment they made was predicted by Tom's mechanical computer, which adjusted the resonators accordingly. "This is impossible," the alien commander's voice thundered. "Your primitive technology cannot affect our ships. Our computers show no electronic signatures, no energy weapons." "That's right," Tom muttered, though the alien couldn't hear him. "Your computers are looking for the wrong thing. They always have been." The Resistance's resonators continued their work, their mechanical parts moving in perfect harmony. The Dominion ship's gravity fields began to collapse, the energy turning back on itself. Their quantum computers, the most advanced in the galaxy, couldn't process what was happening because they were programmed to ignore such primitive mechanical forces. In New York, the first ship lost control of its gravity field completely. The massive vessel, no longer able to maintain its position, was forced to land in Central Park. Similar scenes played out in cities around the world as ship after ship lost their ability to stay airborne. But the Resistance wasn't done. As the ships landed, teams of Resistance fighters emerged from hiding. They carried Tom's original resonance devices, now modified to target the ship's quantum computers directly. The mechanical disruptors, powered by nothing more complex than springs and gears, created magnetic fields that played havoc with the delicate quantum states the aliens relied on. The Dominion's mighty fleet, which had held Earth hostage for 9 months, was being defeated by technology that could have been built a century ago. Their crews, unable to operate their advanced weapons or communicate with their command, were forced to watch helplessly as their ships were systematically disabled. "How?" the alien commander demanded, their voice now coming only from their grounded flagship in London. "How can you defeat us with such primitive tools?" Tom's mechanical computer continued its work, coordinating the Resistance's efforts through a network of gears and levers. Each prediction it made was less accurate than a quantum computer's calculations, but more useful because it understood something the aliens had forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. The battle wasn't over yet. Some Dominion ships remained operational in orbit, and their infantry forces were still dangerous even without their gravity weapons. But the Resistance had achieved something unprecedented. They had proven that humanity's primitive ingenuity could overcome even the most advanced technology. As the sun set over his workshop, Tom watched his mechanical computer continue its steady calculations. The brass and copper components moved with quiet precision, plotting the next phase of humanity's defense. They had won their first major victory not by advancing their technology, but by remembering their roots. The real war for Earth was about to begin. But for the first time since the invasion, humanity had more than just hope. They had proof that they could win. The aftermath of the great battle brought 3 days of tense silence. Disabled Dominion ships lay in cities across Earth like beached whales, their once mighty technology rendered useless by human ingenuity. The remaining alien vessels in orbit maintained their positions, but made no aggressive moves. In his workshop, Tom worked tirelessly with his team, improving their mechanical devices. They all knew the war wasn't over. The Dominion still had vast resources and ships throughout the galaxy. This was just the beginning. "We're picking up movement," Walker reported, entering the workshop with a stack of paper messages from their mechanical observation posts. "Their reinforcements are arriving." Through the small window, they could see new lights appearing in the sky. Hundreds of Dominion ships, even larger than the first wave. They took up attack positions around the planet, their hulls gleaming with enhanced energy shields and weapon systems. "They've modified their technology," Tom noted, studying the ships through an old telescope. "Trying to counter our resonators, but they're still making the same basic mistake." The new Dominion commander's message boomed across the planet. "Your primitive tricks worked once, humans, But we have adapted. Our ships now operate on multiple quantum frequencies. Your mechanical devices cannot possibly match our enhanced technology. Surrender now, or face complete annihilation." Tom smiled for the first time in days. They still don't understand. They think this is about matching their technology. He turned to his team. "Show them what we've been working on." While the Dominion had been gathering their reinforcements, the Resistance hadn't been idle. Tom's mechanical computer had predicted this response, and they had prepared accordingly. In workshops around the world, humans had been building something new. The Resistance's next move shocked even their own members. Instead of hiding their devices, they began moving them out into the open. In every city, they set up their mechanical resonators in plain view. The machines looked primitive, brass and copper constructions that would have been at home in the Victorian era. The Dominion ships launched their first attack at dawn. Their new weapons were impressive. Beams of energy that could stop time in large areas, gravity waves that could reshape matter itself. But something strange happened. Their attacks, powerful as they were, seemed to miss their targets completely. Tom's latest invention was deceptively simple. Using principles of mechanical computing and basic physics, he had created a device that could predict the exact moment and location of Dominion attacks. The mechanical computer didn't need to match the aliens' quantum calculations. It just needed to recognize the patterns in their strategy. Their quantum computers always choose the mathematically perfect solution, Tom explained to Walker as they watched the battle unfold. But perfect isn't always best. Our mechanical predictors aren't as precise, but they understand something the aliens don't: the value of imperfection. The Resistance's counterattack began slowly. In each city, their resonators activated one by one. But instead of trying to disable the Dominion ships directly, they created a complex web of overlapping mechanical frequencies. The effect was like a massive net, invisible but very real. The alien ships found themselves caught in a trap they couldn't understand. Their enhanced shields and multi-frequency quantum systems actually made things worse, creating more points of vulnerability to the humans' mechanical interference. The more they tried to power through the Resistance's measures, the more tangled they became. Impossible. The Dominion commander broadcast, "Your primitive species cannot defeat our advanced civilization. Our technology is centuries beyond yours." "That's exactly the point," Tom muttered, watching his mechanical computer track the battle's progress. "You've gone so far forward that you've forgotten where you came from. Every piece of technology, no matter how advanced, still has to follow the basic laws of physics." The Resistance's strategy wasn't just about disabling the alien ships anymore. Each mechanical device was part of a larger pattern, creating a symphony of physical forces that turned the Dominion's own technology against them. The more the aliens tried to adapt, the more vulnerable they became. In orbit, Dominion ships began retreating in confusion. Their quantum computers, faced with a situation they couldn't quantify, defaulted to their core programming: preserve the technology at all costs. The mighty invasion fleet, which had arrived with such confidence, was being driven back by machines that could have been built 200 years ago. The final blow came from an unexpected source. The Dominion's quantum communication network, which linked their entire fleet, collapsed under the strain of trying to process what was happening. Their perfectly synchronized systems, unable to handle the chaotic patterns created by human mechanical devices, began to fail. Tom's workshop erupted in cheers as the last Dominion ship jumped away from Earth. The Resistance's mechanical network confirmed what their eyes could see: the invasion was over. Humanity had won not by matching the aliens' technology, but by going back to basics. In the days that followed, they learned the full impact of their victory. The Dominion's defeat at the hands of primitive technology had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Other advanced civilizations, which had long feared the Dominion's technological superiority, were amazed that simple mechanical devices could overcome quantum computing. More importantly, the human approach to fighting the Dominion had revealed something crucial about advanced technology. By relying entirely on quantum systems and artificial intelligence, many alien civilizations have become vulnerable to simpler, more fundamental forces. "We've changed the balance of power in the galaxy," Walker told Tom as they watched the last disabled Dominion ship being studied by human engineers. "Not because we're more advanced, but because we remembered what they forgot." Tom nodded, already sketching new designs on his workbench. The victory had taught humanity valuable lessons. They would advance their technology again, reach for the stars as they had always dreamed. But they would do it differently than the Dominion had. They would remember their roots, maintain their connection to the basic principles that had saved their world. In workshops across Earth, humans began combining their mechanical innovations with more advanced technology. They weren't abandoning progress. They were finding a better way forward, one that didn't sacrifice understanding for advancement. The story of Earth's resistance spread through the galaxy, earning humanity a reputation that would last for generations. They became known not for their technology, but for their ingenuity, for their ability to solve problems with whatever tools were available, for their understanding that sometimes the simplest solution was the most powerful. And in his small workshop, surrounded by the tools and machines that had helped save humanity, Tom Reynolds began planning for the future. Because he knew that somewhere out there, the Dominion was learning from their defeat. Next time, they would be better prepared. But so would humanity. They had rediscovered something important during their months of resistance. The real power of human ingenuity wasn't in their tools or their technology. It was in their ability to think differently, to find unexpected solutions, to remember that every problem, no matter how advanced, could be solved if you understood the basic principles behind it. The universe had learned to fear human ingenuity, not because humans were more advanced or more powerful, but because they understood something that the Dominion had forgotten. Sometimes the best way to move forward was to remember where you came from.